Hey, Matt here. I wanted to talk about setting up a server if you wanted to use it with Scrapebox or Scrapeboard. So, Scrapebox and Scrapeboard obviously run from Windows, run on Windows, and they can run from your home computer, home internet connection, that sort of thing. But at some point, you may want to purchase a VPS or an actual dedicated server, depending on what exactly you want to do with those programs. So, the known tested ones that they work with are Windows 2003 and Windows 2008. Now, there's different revisions and service packs of all that sort of stuff. And there's different things you want to take into account depending on what you have. For my dedicated servers, I always set it up with Windows 2008, and at the current, I use revision R2 because it's the newest at the time of this video. And I like how Windows 2008 R2 functions, and I usually use 64-bit because it's more efficient, even though Scrapebox is only a 32-bit application at the moment, and Scrapeboard as well. So, let's just jump right in and have a look. Whenever you get your server, you're going to get some details. It'll be something to the tune of an IP address and then a username, which is usually administrator. I probably spelled that wrong. No, okay, we're good. And then you'll also have a password, which is usually some random string of characters and numbers and all that sort of wonderful stuff. So what you're going to do is, obviously it wouldn't be that, but you're going to take this IP address and administrator and your password, and you're going to go to start, and then you're going to go to, this is on your home computer. In my case, I'm running Windows 7, so it's all programs, and then mine is under accessories, and then choose remote desktop connection, and it'll bring up something here. What you're going to do is you're going to type in your IP address here, whatever it was, and then you're going to hit options, and here you're going to type in your username, and then you can choose allow to save credentials if you want, so that you don't have to type in your password and username every time. Then you can save that to your desktop as a shortcut. You can also adjust the display settings. Ideally, if you want to run it full screen, you're going to set these display settings to the same display settings you're using on your current monitor. That way everything is sized up and you don't have scroll bars to scroll the screen up and down. Then you can choose local resources and that sort of thing. And then programs and various things through here depending on your internet connection and that sort of thing. So you can mess with all the settings there, whether or not you want it to map drives and play sounds and all that. And then the colors and whatnot. But then you're going to hit connect. Now I've already connected to one. Usually it'll ask you for server certificate and all that sort of stuff. You can go ahead and hit continue. And then once you're in, it's going to look something like this. You're going to see a remote desktop connection. I have mine to fit on the video here, these scroll bars. If you size it to the same size as your desktop, you won't have that issue. When you first log in, it'll probably pop up with a couple of different screens. Usually you can close out of those. There is one important thing specifically on Windows 2008, and I think it happens on Windows 2003 if you have like one of the newest versions. But on Windows 2008, you'll see this little icon down here. This is Server Manager. You can also get to it from the Start menu. It's under Administrative Tools, I believe, the Server Manager. Anyways, if you click on that, there's this thing called IEESC, and what that does is this may be in a different spot depending on the Windows that you're using, but again, on Windows 2008 R2, it automatically blocks every single web page out there, and you have to add each and every single web page to a whitelist if you want to use it. Now, obviously, if you load up a list of 1,000,000 URLs, you don't want to go through hand by hand and whitelist every single one of those URLs before you can deal with them with Scrapebox or Scrapeboard. So just pop this open and turn it off. Both of them, the user and administrator, and turn it off. And so now you're basically good to go for most server companies as far as being able to function with Scrapebox or Scrapeboard. Obviously, you have to install it and activate it. The next thing you want to do is go to the control panel, and you're going to want to go to user accounts, and you're going to want to change your password, because unless you can remember the password they give you or you save it off, I like to make something a little bit more user friendly for me but still highly secure. So you type in the current password they gave you and then make up a new one in a password hint and change your password. Another thing you want to do in the main control panel, this will vary based on your Windows version, is go to Appearance, and then go to change screensaver, and make sure this on resume display log on screen is unchecked. If you check that, after every X minutes that you specify over here, it's automatically going to go to screensaver and lock the screen, and you're going to have to manually punch in a password to get back in. On my servers, I leave them running. I actually have a second monitor, and I kick all my server windows over to my second monitor, and I leave them running full screen all the time, and then I just go back and forth between them. Or you could just minimize it, that sort of thing. If you're not always going to stay connected and you're going to disconnect as soon as you get done, this step doesn't really matter. But if you want to stay connected all the time, it's annoying to have to punch the password in a dozen times a day every time you log on. So I just leave that unchecked. And that's pretty much about the whole of how I go through and set up a server. I have multiple dedicated servers, so all set up like an FTP type server, only secure, on the various servers for transferring files between them, because it's faster to transfer files between servers over their own internet connections, because obviously they're faster than my home connection. That's not a necessary step at all, and if you only had one server, it would be, completely pointless. We won't go into that on this video. One thing that I did find handy that took me a long time to figure out, just because I just didn't realize what I was doing, is if you hit Control CT on your keyboard, Control plus Alt plus the pause break key, that will toggle your remote desktop connection window between full screen and not. So I'm going to do it, and you won't be able to see it because of the video, but when I do this, you can see that my scroll bars went away because everything jumped out to full screen, and then when I come back, there it is with the scroll bars and that sort of thing. So if you wanted to toggle between full screen and not, you can do that. Otherwise, pretty straightforward. You're going to have your desktop connection shortcut. Whenever you want it, you click on it. It'll bring up this screen here, and it's a Windows desktop, just like everything you have. Another handy thing on the Windows is Control-Alt-Delete, oftentimes, depending on how you have things configured, will bring up the local options on your computer. So like if you wanted to run Task Manager or shut down the server or something like that, it's going to bring up your local stuff, not on the server. So you can hit Start and this Windows Security option, and what that does is it brings up your lock computer, log off, change password, that sort of thing, and Start Task Manager. And so it's helpful a lot of times to see Task Manager and to see performance and your services and processes or whatever. I like to monitor my performance depending on how, and my networking depending on how many things I have going. And you can see this server has a lot of cores, so you can actually grab a hold of this and bring it out here so you can see all the different processing cores more accurately at a glance, and then your percentage and your memories over here as well. And then networking is nice. I run gigabit networking, and you can see your percentage running down here when you're doing stuff. So you don't, if you're on a 100 megabit server, you might get close to 100 megabit, but I mean, I wouldn't realistically expect on average to get over 60% or 60 megabit worth of connection from my experience, just if things get clogged up. Now that's not a figure that's necessarily applicable to all server companies. That's just the companies I've used, which is a very narrow scope, so don't take that one to the bank. On my gigabit server, I don't like to push it much over 300 to 400 megabit connection, just because at that point I usually have the processor maxed out anyways, and so you can kind of see what's going on over here, your percentage, and then your processor and that sort of thing. Maybe over the top for some users, but that's handy if you want to gauge that sort of stuff. And other than that, I don't really do anything too different. A lot of times if you have your well, I guess one other thing is I do map my local drive to the server. So if you're when you're setting up your remote desktop connection on your home PC. One of the options is if you want to map any local hard drives to the server, and I have mine mapped. So this would be my server hard drive, and this would be my hard drive on my home PC. And when I click on that, then it allows me basically to transfer files back and forth. Another thing you can do is if you have files on your local desktop, you can just click. You can't drag them from your local desktop window to this remote server window, but you can right click or control C on your local desktop and copy them essentially to the clipboard, and then come over here and right click and click paste. So if I wanted to take a shortcut off of my local desktop, for instance, of I'll just take a Scrapebox one here. I'm gonna let me see if I can make this so you can see this here. We go over here, we right click, go to copy, and then we bring up our server window back up, and we right click over here and go to paste, and it copies it there. Now obviously this shortcut is linked to my local desktop, so it's not going to work. But if you had actual files that you wanted to copy for whatever purposes, it's easy to copy back and forth because you just right click copy and then you paste on your local desktop, or vice versa. And since I don't need this, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. But that's pretty much everything I have and use for a remote desktop connection.